Matthew Stone, Fire Marshal for the City of Burlington.
What do you do here? What do you see most?
We do a wide variety of things. The main duty of our job, though, is fire safety within the City of Burlington. So we do a lot of fire safety inspections of any public building, and then we also do fire investigations if there is a fire. And we also do construction permits for sprinkler systems and fire alarm systems. And we also do public education as well, or community risk reduction.
In terms of public education, where do you usually go for that?
A lot of times we go into the school systems. We primarily focus on the younger population and then also the elderly population. So a lot of retirement homes or nursing homes we go into.
What do you think is the most important thing to get across when you're doing that kind of education?
Basic fire safety, so like not playing with matches, how candles are used and not letting them burn unattended, what to do when a fire alarm does sound within your building, if it has one, exiting the building, calling 911, and just safe cooking practices as well, and then other aspects of maybe not necessarily fire safety, but just safety about slips, trips, and falls, and just keeping your space clean and organized and not overloading it with combustible materials.
So I'm assuming you see a lot of things that aren't necessarily fire related then if you're educating on safety for like slips, or is that more related to like if you're holding something that could be flammable?
No, so like when I do the fire safety in, say, a retirement home, we talk about having rugs that won't cause you to trip and fall if you're using a walker or a cane. Like if they're missing handrails for the staircases, that's something we talk about, getting those replaced or upgrading for that. So we go beyond the fire safety aspect of it.
Are a lot of the like actual calls you get more fire related or just general safety?
For the fire department itself, majority of our calls, upwards of 75%, are medical related of some form. So that could be somebody fell down and need help getting up, or they've had a cardiac arrest. So it's a wide range of that. And then our other calls are made up of sometimes false alarms, because a fire alarm is tripped for an unknown cause, but we have a lot of cooking smoke alarms, or somebody is questioning why their smoke alarm is going off in their house because it's beeping, and that can be a low battery. It's just beeping every 30 seconds, or there might actually be an issue they haven't recognized yet.
What kind of issue would that be?
Well, sometimes CFL or compact fluorescent lights, those will sometimes start melting down, and they'll create enough smoke to set off the smoke alarm, and they can be hard to find because it's not like smoke rolling out of a chimney,
Right.
for your heating fire. So that we investigate and help people find what that issue is.
So you said that you do like inspections for, did you say like buildings in advance and as opposed to like afterwards as well as after?
Yeah, we do both. So there's a couple different inspections we do. If a new building is being built and it gets a sprinkler system installed, then I do inspections on the sprinkler system, and then also I'm doing fire safety inspections as required by the NFPA code to make sure they're just keeping the construction site clean. They have fire extinguishers in place where they need to be, items like that. And then public buildings that are existing, we do fire safety inspections to make sure, like fire alarm systems get inspected every year, fire extinguishers get inspected every year, making sure doors aren't blocked, doors are working properly. And those get done, depending on the building, typically once a year.
I know we were talking a second ago about like some residential fires. I know that especially here in the Old North End, there are a lot of really, really old structures. Does that pose a unique risk to residential fires? Is that higher in Burlington versus maybe areas that don't have as old, like 17th century houses?
Yeah, the age of the building definitely plays a role in the risk of fire and then how bad the fire can be. So we have in the Old North End, there are a lot of very old buildings that are close together, and they don't have sprinkler systems. They don't have a fire alarm system. So when I say a fire alarm system, that's something that notifies the whole building that there's a problem going on. A smoke alarm is just what you'd have in your apartment, in your house. It notifies just you of something going on. So, but the big difference is the lack of sprinkler systems in the buildings, and then how they're constructed really affects how the fire behaves within that structure.
So personally, I'm a student, and there's a lot of overturn, and there is a housing crisis in Burlington.
Right.
What do you think that people should do when posed with older houses that may be less up to these codes? And I just know that there are some apartments that maybe don't have fire escapes or proper windows, stuff like that.
If you're looking at a place to rent, you want to make sure that number one thing is that the smoke alarms are installed and are working. And smoke alarms are required on every level of the building, every bedroom, and outside of every bedroom in a hallway area. And that also includes one CO detector on each level of the house. So that's the first thing you want to look for. And then you want to look to see, they're also required to have a fire extinguisher in the kitchen area, and it should be hanging on the wall and not in a cabinet for it. And then also look at your situation. If you're on the second floor, do you have a set of stairs that you can get down safely? Are there handrails there? Is the stairwell in good condition? And then do your doors work properly for that? Sometimes doors get stuck and they can be hard to open, and that can change with the weather. If it's in the wintertime, stuff dries out, and that can affect how stuff opens up. But then in the spring, when it gets really damp, wood can swell, and that will sometimes make a door stick. So, and then if you're on the second floor, making sure the window in your bedroom can open so that if you need to climb out it, you can, if necessary. Or also, we can get to the window from the outside if need be, because we do rescue people from windows sometimes for it. And then, like, if you're on the third floor, there may or may not be a fire escape, because it really depends on when the building was built, when it was converted to an apartment unit, and then when was the last time it changed ownership. So if a building sells, we do a fire safety inspection, and if something happens like the window's not the correct size, that's when we say the window has to be upgraded to the correct size, because every bedroom is required to have a certain size window for egress reasons for it. And if your window's too high off the ground, then that might drive a fire escape or a sprinkler system for it. So preferably, if you're renting an apartment, you're looking for those smoke alarms. It has a sprinkler system. That's a huge plus. We've had multiple fires that have saved people's lives because they have a sprinkler system, and just your egress ability to get in and out.
Do you see a lot of apartments that aren't super compliant with these codes?
Typically, the apartments, they are in compliance with the codes, and they do get inspections from Department of Permitting and Inspections. They have a cycle that apartment buildings are inspected on, and so we share the inspection responsibilities in the city. So DPI, or Department of Permitting and Inspections, they take care of all the rental properties, and then we take care of other spaces. When I say public buildings, like bars, restaurants, assemblies places like the Flynn, that's an assembly, other buildings like businesses and stuff like that. Now, if DPI needs help or we need help, we work with each other for it. So commonly, like if you say aren't up to code, commonly what we find is the smoke alarm battery is missing. That is technically not code compliant. It's an easy fix though. So if we're in, we say you need to put the battery back in the smoke alarm. Or sometimes people take them down because they were annoying because of cooking smoke, right?
Right.
So we say you need to put that smoke alarm back up. If people aren't compliant, we can fine them up to $500. But people always work with us to get stuff working again, and landlords are always good about working with us, to make sure that those corrections get made for it. So it's rare that we find something that is so bad that people would have to move out of the apartment. It does happen once in a while, but it's not often. It's usually an easily correctable violation.
Are buildings required to have fire escapes, like physical, like stairs? Because I know I'll see some old structures on the outside of buildings. Are they required to have that on non-ground level floors?
The NFPA, or National Fire Protection Association, their code book, which is what Vermont has adopted for fire safety, states that any window higher than 20 feet above grade, so where the dirt meets your house, that you have to either put in a sprinkler system or you need a proper fire escape. So a lot of these wooden fire escapes that you see on houses, a lot of those were done back in the 80s. Codes have changed a lot since the 80s. So today we don't allow those wooden fire escapes to be built we just say you need to put in a sprinkler system, because even in an NFPA, they do have guidelines for a fire escape, but they are very complicated to do. So like today, we're not going to allow those wooden fire escapes.
My house has a ladder, like a wooden ladder on the
Right,
outside.
and that, and unfortunately there, the building would need to change ownership. So that gives us the authority to then say, you need to change, you need to upgrade these fire safety features, because we have to look at a building either the last time it was sold or when it was built and how it complies to that code. That doesn't, it gets complicated. That's not 100% true, but that's our starting point for it.
Gotcha.
So I do have the authority to say, I'm not going to allow that anymore, but we have over 10,000 buildings in the city, so it's hard to see every single one and know all of what's going on with everyone.
When you go and inspect after a fire has happened, is that public buildings and residential?
Any
Apartments?
fire,
Okay.
yeah, regardless if it's a public or owner-occupied single-family home, we do the fire investigation, and that will also then drive, if we find something not in compliance, then that will drive them having to upgrade the entire building to the current fire safety codes.
What do you see most often in these residential fires? I know we were talking about a series of a few that happened in November. What's most common?
Typically, human error is the issue. Misuse of candles. So we had one fire, a candle was left burning on the window in a bedroom, and it fell off onto the bed, so the bed caught on fire. We've had other ones, smoking materials, meaning any form of vaping, marijuana, anything that requires people to use a lighter or heat source for the smoking materials. Those can be common. We've had people fall asleep with a cigarette in their hand that catches their chair on fire. And sometimes, not as often, it's systems of the building, like an electrical system has a failure. But for the most part, it's humans. It's human nature that is causing the fires, unfortunately.
What would you say people should look out most for then? I assume like making sure you don't leave candles lit.
We've had instances where people put a pot of pasta on the stove and then they fall asleep and they leave that boiling, so that catches on fire. So just remember cooking safety. Don't leave your stove unattended when you're cooking something. If you're cooking and you have a grease fire, remembering not to use water on the grease fire. You smother it or use your fire extinguisher to put it out. Anything that's a heat source, incense, candles, matches, lighters, all that is not left unattended if it's in working condition. We've had incense blow off a windowsill and catch curtains on fire. So just being aware and safe with that. Also, you can ask questions of your landlord or owner of the building. Are the furnaces up to date on their inspection? Because they have to be inspected every 2 years. So once in a while, we do have a furnace that fails and causes a fire. Dryer vents, you can ask, if you have a dryer in your apartment, you can ask if the dryer vent has been cleaned, because those do cause fires if they're not kept clean. So simple items like that are the most common causes. Don't be afraid to ask questions of the landlord of the upkeep of the building.
And how often should the fire alarms and CO2 be tested?
So monthly, they have test buttons on them. So your fire alarms, monthly you can push the test button to make sure they're working. But generally what we say is every time your clocks go forward or backwards, you should replace your batteries and test all of your smoke alarms. Smoke alarms are good for 10 years. CO detectors are good for 7 years. A lot of them are combination.
Right.
So it would be every 7 years. There are new ones coming out. Both of them will have a 10-year life cycle, but it says on the back of it. So just making sure the landlord's replacing them at the appropriate time.
Is there any other advice you'd give to short-term renters in these older houses?
Just be aware of what you're walking into, because it's a new place to you and it doesn't have the oversight of like a hotel or the fire safety systems. So just when you go into your bedroom, if you're asleep, you know your way out. Does the window open so you can get out? Can you get to the front door easily? We had one place that was an Airbnb, and the heater was turned on, and there were books on top of it, and the books caught on fire. Everybody got out fine. It was a little fire. They were able to go back in and sleep that night. But that's just an example of just noticing what's around you. If you see something that you question or doesn't look right, like removing the books from a heating surface, that's an easy fix that you can do. Yeah.
How many Airbnbs are in the area? Do you happen to know?
I don't know. That's a question that DPI, that they would know, because we do track them, but it's not something on my radar.
Right, because that's definitely there have been a rise of Airbnbs, I think, in the area.
Yes, they're very popular around the whole country, and in Burlington, I would not be surprised if we have a couple hundred of them easily in the city.
Interesting, yeah.
Yeah, because anybody can do it.
Yeah.
Anybody can do it. You can Airbnb your house
Right.
for the weekend or whatever, and
Does that become an issue with fire safety? Or?
it can, because when you, like, if a student Airbnbs their apartment for the weekend, it's already known as an apartment or a rental unit, so it does get inspections. But if somebody owns their house and then they do an Airbnb and none of us know, that technically has become a rental unit, and it should get fire safety inspections of everything that I've talked about. So, and a private home has different jurisdiction of what we can say and do within it. But as soon as they become a rental, then that allows us the authority to go in for it. And if we don't know about it, somebody might not have the correct number of smoke alarms in the, like, there's still a lot of houses, they don't have a smoke alarm in every bedroom. It's just in the hallway. That makes a big difference in the warning to somebody that's sleeping.
So we talked about some advice you would have for short-term renters. What about in public spaces where I know you interact with more?
Yeah, so public spaces, just remember there are requirements for more than one exit when you go into a public space typically. So when you go in, most people, when they go into the building, they're going to go out the same way they came in. So being aware of an emergency, where are your other exits for needing to be able to get out of the building? And that's the most important thing, really. Or if you go into a building, like we have a lot of bars, so knowing where the exits are there, but also if you walk into a bar and it seems really crowded, are they overcrowded or not? You're not going to know, but if it's not a comfortable situation, find a different establishment to go to for that.
And often there'll be like basement areas.
Yes,
too.
and like our bars that are in basements, they are required to be sprinkled, but then their secondary exit point, you may never see it because there's multiple rooms. So just knowing you have to travel through, like you might have to travel through this office to go out for another exit if you came in that door. So they're supposed to have signs that direct you.
Of course.
But so just once again being aware of your surroundings.
What about situations in like houses with basements where people will,
So
that's a big thing in Burlington as well.
Yes, it is, and we do have converted basements that we don't know about. So people will illegally occupy a basement, and basements are, not for lack of a better term, but they can be a death trap when not set up properly. So because a basement requires a window to be that you can get out of, just like your bedroom on the first floor.
Okay.
So you need that second egress point, and you can't live in a basement that has an exposed ceiling. They're supposed, you're supposed to have a closed-in ceiling with sheetrock because that makes it more fire safe. So if you do have a unit in a basement, if you don't have a window that is at least like 24 feet by maybe 5 feet, you need to question what's going on there. Unless a sprinkler system does make a difference on the windows. So that is something else. If you're in a basement and there's a sprinkler system, then you're probably in a legal apartment. But you can also reach out to the city and say, hey, I moved into this apartment. And people do. A lot of parents reach out for their students that go to either college and say, hey, does this situation make sense? Is it legal?
So if you wanted to have the fire department inspect your personal rental apartment, could you just call and ask, or how does that work?
You can certainly call and ask, but generally what we'll do is we'll look at their records of when was the last time DPI went and inspected it, and then we'll look to make sure that all the units in there are legal for it, because buildings get listed, they have 4 dwelling units, and if somebody calls us and say, I'm in unit number 5 in the basement, that's gonna trigger a whole slew of actions for it. And typically we'll reach out to DPI because they cover that area, and we'll let them take care of that request. But there are times where we'll just come by and we want to take a look at it, because it also comes into the firefighter's safety of doing our job if something happens there.
Do you have any other advice for students that are renting?
I think the main thing is, when you rent a place, really pay attention to what the condition of the building is. Like if you go in and there's holes in the wall or something's missing, I know choices can be hard of where to live, and sometimes you make concessions to what is acceptable. I was in college, I went through the same thing. I remember fighting landlords. I had good landlords and I had some that I had troubles with, but just looking at those conditions of the apartment, do you feel safe in it? And then don't be afraid to reach out to anybody in the city, with questions, because they'll direct you to the right person that could answer the question.